This time I'll call the May 16th, 2022 council meeting to order. At this time I'll recognize Council Member, the Honorable William Bump Brady, who will lead us in invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Before I start the prayer, I want to take a moment of silence for the incident that happened, the tragic incident that we all witnessed on the news in Buffalo, New York, for those who were wounded and those who were killed of a senseless crime. We'll take a moment of silence. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you with humble hearts and minds. We ask that you continue to watch over us, lead us and guide us. Watch over this council as we deliberate the issues at hand to make York County a better place to live, work, and worship. We ask that you protect our many men and women of the service industry, our military, our firefighters, our police officers, our EMS, and those who respond during any time of crisis. Lord, bless this chamber. Bless our young folk who are here with us this evening. Lead them and guide them and show them the right way. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. It's good to have a packed house so you can hear everything that's going on at the county. We appreciate you being here tonight. Tonight we move to the oath of office portion of our agenda, and if the following individuals would come forward when I call your name and come in front of the podium so that you can be sworn in by our legal counsel. Paul Wise, Bethesda Fire Tax Board. Wayne Helms, Building Board of Appeals. Veronica Orderick, Bethel, Lake Wiley, and Land Acquisition and Preservation Park District Board. Laura Ulrich, Catawba Regional Council of Government, and Walter Martinson, Board of Assessment Appeals for District 6. And as you make your way, on behalf of council, we want to say thank you so much for your willingness to serve on a volunteer basis. We cannot do the work that needs to be done for the people without your help, and you oftentimes will not get thanks for what you do, but we do want to say thank you for that.
Do solemnly swear that I'm duly qualified, according to the Constitution of this state, to exercise the duties of the office to which I have been appointed, that I will, to the best of my ability, discharge the duties thereof, and preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of this state and of the United States. So help me God. Thank you.
At this time, I'll recognize Sheriff Tolson, who will come forward and recognize Sergeant Wayne Richardson.
Hey, good evening, council. Thank you. Standing to my right is another great one leaving us. I hate to hear that. I hate to see that. I hate to see good people in our profession opting for other things in life right now, but that's the world that we live in. And standing beside me, Sergeant Wayne Richardson, served his country in the United States Marine Corps from 1985 to 1989. Radio communications and infantry, I think. Yes. In 2003, he was hired at the Fort Mill Police Department, where he worked patrol, and he was also assigned to the countywide drug unit. Took him 10 years to get his wits about him, and he decided then he needed to work for the sheriff's office. Got a lot smarter then. Yes, sir. Wayne has done a tremendous job for us at the sheriff's office. He's been patrol, he's been an SRO, he's been an SRO supervisor, he's been our code enforcement unit, most recently our lake patrol supervisor, Allison. You've probably seen him a lot around the Lake Wiley area. and he served our SWAT team for 11 years as a sniper. I think most importantly, Wayne's love for youth and the things that he's done in his career and in his life and throughout his church. He was my nephew's youth leader at church. He has influenced so many young lives as an SRO, as a football coach, assistant football coach. He just has a love for the paths of young people, and he's impacted so many people's lives, so many young people's lives outside the sheriff's office, not to mention the job that he did, the commendations that I received. He was Employee of the Month multiple times during his tenure at the office, and he also was one of the first recipients of the Medal of Valor that we present, as well as the Sheriff's Association, for taking the last hairs off of my head in 2017 for the first of my officer-involved shootings that involved the agency, which everyone in law enforcement ended up turning out safe. And so to Wayne, I say thank you, good luck, God bless. I wish him the best in the future. I appreciate council's opportunity for me and you, council, to recognize Wayne and his service. He has been a great officer, but he's truly, truly a great man, and for that I want to thank him and join you in thanking him.
Sergeant Richardson, I know on behalf of this council, on behalf of everyone in this room, and on behalf of everyone in our county, we appreciate your service and we wish you well in your retirement.
And thank you very much.
You want to say
And you're
anything?
welcome to say a few words.
Throughout the years I have served in law enforcement, it was about the people. It was never about the ticket. And Sheriff Tolson and I kind of come up at the same times, and it was about helping people. And I developed a love for people years ago. To be able to help somebody was more important than some of the things that you see on cops. I truly am honored to have served under Sheriff Tolson. The person who I had actually kind of started with, he was at the academy at the same time I was at the academy. He was just a little bit further ahead of me, and got to know him throughout the years now to serve under him as my sheriff, and what a great job he has done. And the family, the way he has pulled a group of young men and women together to be the family we are today, and I'm truly appreciative of him.
How much you need. Thank you, Wayne.
But I do appreciate the opportunity to serve York County, and it's a bittersweet. It really is. But I will miss serving York County in this capacity.
Well, the council gives you this clock that you don't have to put batteries in.
Okay.
So time doesn't even matter anymore. It doesn't have to screen for their appreciation. So thank you, Wayne.
Yes, sir. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I appreciate it.
Well, I know I speak for our entire council when I say how blessed we are to have such great schools in York County. Not only do we have one school district, we have four, and all of them are doing so well. And it seems like every other council meeting, we're celebrating one of our school districts for something great, either academically, sports-wise. And this time, we get to celebrate Clover High School. Tonight, we honor the Clover High School drumline, who, for the first time ever, won the 2022 WGI Dayton World Championship. This is the first time that any high school indoor drumline from South Carolina has ever won this honor. And the Blue Eagles, with their final performance on Medusa, which is very interesting. If you have not watched the full clip on this, you need to do that. Have the all-time second highest score in the entire history of the competition history, which is a major feat. At first tonight, I thought that we might be able to have some drums come in here and play, but they nixed that. They said that was not a good idea. So we do have a clip, and Ryan Hall, who is the director of percussion, is here tonight. We're going to recognize him, and we'll have the team come forward. We appreciate your enthusiasm and showing up so that we can have a picture once we get done, but I think we have a little bit of a clip to show. Do we have sound?
Presenting their program, Medusa, WGI Sport of the Arts is proud to present Clover High School.
There. Making us proud here in York County. Mr. Hall, if you'd like to come forward and say a few words, and then we'd like to have the students come up for a picture if we can.
And I'd like to add one thing. So my name is Ryan Hall, Director of Percussion at Clover High School and Clover School District. There was a little over 400 performances that weekend in Ohio and 47 groups in our class. Our goal for the kids was just to go up there and try to make finals. When we started winning, I was very surprised, but not surprised because they're a great group of kids. And we had fun. We didn't reinvent the wheel. We had 3 kids that's ever done this before in the ensemble. We're a very young group. Raise your hand if you're an 8th grader. We had a lot of 8th graders in this group, and we just wanted to have fun. We had rehearsals where we had glow stick nights, so we didn't do anything crazy. We did rehearse hard and tough, but we had fun, right? I want to thank York County for being the best school district around. I can't tell you how many friends I've texted from college and said, come work in York. There's a science teacher job open. Because math, science, it all makes the wheels go round. If we didn't have the best teachers in York County, these kids wouldn't have not accomplished this task. I want to thank Rod Ruth, our principal, Dr. Sheila Quinn, for their support. Anytime I've asked for anything, they're like, yeah, what can we do? So we have the best school district in the state and in the country.
Congratulations
yeah,
again.
thank you.
Y'all please come forward. Let's get a quick picture. Say a few words.
I just want to add one thing to that, and I've watched that video multiple times, but we cut it a little short tonight, so I just want to encourage everybody to go online, go to the Clover School District page, and watch the grand finale. Is awesome.
The grand finale is awesome.
Yeah.
We're back this way. Come on.
What do y'all say when y'all take pictures? Blue Eagles? Yay! Thank you so much. I have not. We lost half the audience.
Yeah. That was impressive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Man, to be able to dance.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Thank y'all for being here.
Yeah, I mean,
So now we move on to our public forum session, which is limited to 30 minutes and 2 minutes per individual. A couple of things. As you come forward, and I'll read your name if you signed up to speak, you'll have 2 minutes. If you'll pay attention to on the screen up front, your 2 minutes will start, and then when it is up, it will start blinking and flashing. I absolutely hate interrupting people, but it's my job to do that, so I have to do that. If you will kindly pay attention so that I don't have to do that, I would very much appreciate it. Since council does not interact with you, it's our time to listen to you. We ask that you not target or do any specific comments to individuals, and that you speak to the issue that you're here to speak about. The first individual is Margaret Puckett. And if you come up, if you'll state your name and give your address before you start.
Margaret Puckett, 1919 Manor Court, Fort Mill. Good evening, York County Council, staff, members of the public. My name is Margaret Puckett. I'm the Vice President of Land Acquisition for Tri-Point Homes. I had the opportunity to present Tri-Point's rezoning petition on May 2nd, identified as 2208, in front of 4 council members. 3 of you were not present, Mr. Guffey, Mr. Hamilton, and Mr. Audette. And I'd like to summarize the highlights that we went over in that presentation and talk about why we believe our property that we're proposing to rezone is the best use, and based on surrounding land uses, why we believe that Tri-Point's use is the best. The staff report, in which was compiled for our April 11th planning board meeting, makes the assumption that all homes on Colthrop on the south side will transition to office, light industrial, or institutional. Respectfully, the staff report overlooked the significance of the residents south that adjoin our property in the proposed rezoning. 1918 Colthrop Road is a 4,300 square foot home owned by David Jennings, and his sister next door, 1926 Colthrop, is a 2,700 square foot home that's owned by Catherine Jennings. These homes originally sat on the land where Habersham sits today, 187 home sites in that neighborhood. When Four Star purchased the 125 acres, the homes owned by the Jennings were actually physically lifted off of their foundations and moved to the south side of Colthrop Road. These homes are significant and have kind of nestled in and settled in on the south side. They've done a lot of updates to their landscaping and really have made that home. They are our immediate neighbors and are in support of our proposed rezoning. Additionally, there's 2 other neighbors that are in support of our rezoning. And finally, Forest Hill Church has identified and wrote us a letter saying that they would prefer to see residential uses and not the light industrial or the institutional zoning that the long-term comprehensive plan is calling for. When we started this rezoning quest in August of last year, it was in Mr. Hamilton's district, and it still is in Mr. Hamilton's district. And the way that we've had conversations with
Thank
Joel.
you, Ms. Puckett. Bailey Patrick.
Good evening, Bailey Patrick, 2107 Greenway Avenue, Charlotte. Speaking in support of the Coltharp Road rezoning. I'm the listing agent for the property. I'm with MPV Properties. Our firm specializes in land brokerage, and we also have a development arm that builds retail, office, and industrial projects. I've personally been trying to help the Nibbins family sell this property since 2017. We've tried to find office, medical office, and light industrial developers for the site, but have struck out for a few reasons. The first reason is the lack of frontage on Coltharp Road and mid-block location. Most businesses want to be on a busy road and where they're visible to their customers and where their employees can easily get in and out at stoplights. And this site does not have those characteristics. You'll see on TriPoint's plan later tonight, I think, that there's barely enough room for a residential street to get into the property, and there would only be one way in and out at the busiest travel times. The second point is Coltharp Road isn't built for truck and heavy car traffic, and the area has such an obvious residential feel to it that business owners and their brokers end up pursuing land opportunities in other parts of the county that are more commercialized. To give you an example, our company developed the last phase of Lakemont Business Park across from Carowinds, and as we started running out of land at that business park, we would pass prospects onto this site basically, and numerous drove by the site. Not one of them made an offer because it just doesn't feel like an office industrial site. In summary, I'd like to say that the market has clearly told me over the past 5 years that residential is the most desired use for the property. It's the least disruptive from a traffic perspective, and it fits in with the neighborhood. Lumping all these properties on Coltharp into the same employment use category may make sense on a long-range planning map, but the market dynamics and specific property characteristics did not support that use today. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Hawkins.
Good evening. Kelly Hawkins, 2272 Cross Trail Ridge, Rock Hill. I'm speaking in support of the rezoning. My family owns the parcel of land at 1876 Coltharp Road. We've been a part of the town of Fort Mill for over 4 generations. We purchased the land in the late 1940s and eventually built on it in the mid-1950s. We've seen substantial growth in Fort Mill over the last 20 years, and when we decided to put the land on the market, we wanted something built there that would be the least amount of impact on the surrounding neighbors, but also would benefit the citizens of Fort Mill. After speaking with TriPoint, we decided that they would offer both of these things. And so we hope that after looking at all the information tonight, that you will approve the rezoning so that TriPoint and our family can move forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. David Jennings.
David Jennings, 1918 Coltharp Road, Fort Mill. I wanted to cover something different this week. I've got a big concern with Coltharp Road and what this potential development could do if it's light industrial. You could buy a 1 to 2 acre lot that's open in that business park off Shutterfly Boulevard and have access to this 10 acres. But this 10 acres also has frontage and access to Coltharp Road. And it's almost unbelievable what drivers will do to cut 2 or 3 cars off or to cut a few hundred feet off their distance they have to travel. Most of y'all are aware of former council chairman Michael Johnson. I don't know how many of you have been to his office. He has a road that comes off Carolina Place and had another entrance to a service road that ran behind Papa John's and Burger King and came out on Pleasant Road. He had to put pipes up and close that off because so many people were cutting through from Carolina Place to get on that service road to go to miss that red light at 160 in Carolina Place. And if you look beside him, Holiday Inn Express and Suites, they have that since they opened up. They've had their entrance onto that service road chained off because so many people cut through. It's not safe, and it just jams up that road. If that business park's expanded on up toward behind my house, and they have access to Cawthorpe Road, all the employees in that business park are gonna be coming out that way, and before long, that'll be a cut-through, just like Cawthorpe Road is a cut-through now. But it shouldn't even be considered until they put a red light in at 21 and Cawthorpe Road, and I hope they don't put a major road in until they have exit ramps to get off the interstate there.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Catherine Jennings.
Hi, my name's Catherine Jennings. I live at 1926 Colthorpe Road. I support Tri-Point Homes' proposal for the Nivens property. I do not support light industrial for this area. It's Colthorpe Road. My family has lived there since my grandparents purchased like 125 acres in 1944. And my brother and I live in a part of the original acreage, and we probably would have never had to move our homes had it not been the misfortune of my brother and I in inheritance. My parcel is on front of Nivens property, and the Forest Hill Church is on the other side. And then you've got Mrs. Newton on the other side. We're all opposed to light industrial. It's just not a fit for Colthorpe Road.
Thank you, ma'am. Ben Johnson.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. I'm Ben Johnson. I live at 310 College Avenue, Rock Hill. I represent Tri-Point Homes. Thank you for giving us the chance to speak again tonight. We appreciate the ones of you who were here and gave the matter first reading last time, and we thought we would just give you as abbreviated version of what we presented at the public hearing last time. This is a legislative function for you guys. No single factor controls your decision, but the quintessential factor in zoning is it compatible with the surrounding uses? And I don't think anybody here believes that light industrial type development would be appropriate here. In Bailey Patrick, they've tried to sell this property for years as commercial or office, and it just doesn't work because there's not enough road frontage. The report, as I mentioned before, with due respect to the staff, overlooks the significant residences south of Colthorpe owned by Chief Jennings and Ms. Jennings, and our client has worked closely with them to be sure there are adequate buffers to protect their property interests in their very significant houses south of Colthorpe. Townhomes, I would hope there would be no knee-jerk response to the idea of townhomes. They serve an appropriate transition in circumstances like this, where you would not want to put a hard stop of single family up against the church or up against the office building that is on the other side. So we think it's an appropriate transition. The church very much supports this. Their playground is next to this site. The last thing you would want is some kind of industrial project there. And this, from a traffic standpoint, our TIA has been accepted. This project is the least traffic intensive project you could imagine as compared to commercial or office. Please give this matter second reading. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Derek Craxburger.
Good evening. My name is Derek Craxburger. I live at 5301 Meadowcroft Way, Fort Mill, in the Habersham neighborhood that we were just hearing about on the other side of Colthorpe. I'm also the HOA president for that community, and I'm here to speak against the potential rezoning of that property. Our residents have a number of issues, primarily with the school situation. I know you've all been informed the school district is opposed to any additional residences in that area. In fact, they're already looking at PKMS, Pleasant Knoll Elementary School, to have a frozen enrollment already for this coming school year. And I don't believe that takes into account the hundreds of townhomes that are breaking ground as we speak around that particular school in the actual Fort Mill city limits. I know that sometimes we don't think that there's going to be a lot more children in a townhome development, but Fort Mill is a town with a reputation for good schools and limited housing. And any housing that comes available is going to be popular with any families looking to come into that area. I was going to speak to the traffic situation. However, I believe that the people who were already speaking have already covered the situation. Coltharp is not an ideal traffic situation, and I don't see how additional residences on that road would help in any way or shape or form. And finally, we're aware of your 2035 long-range planning guidance for the county, and that approving this would be in violation of that. So in short, the residents of Habersham are asking you to think, what is the actual value of these residences? What is the overriding public good that would cause you to vote against your own planning guidance and to ignore the school district credible warning that they simply cannot handle the influx of families that would inevitably call that place home? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. I know I'm gonna mispronounce this, so I apologize in advance. It looks like Karthikeyan Manoharan.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I live in Habersham too, with on 5220 Meadowcroft Way, and I think Derek pretty much covered what we had to say, but I'm also here to say against the rezoning of that, and Derek covered it, and I'm the treasurer for the neighborhood for Habersham. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Carrie Bishop.
Carrie Bishop, 1851 Bonneray Drive, Rock Hill. I'm going to hit another angle about this whole growth thing with the new Indy paper mill. The Herald had an article out this week about the Morningstar Tower that states in a March 22 press release, the county said that they have a duty to the health, safety, and welfare of its citizens and simply cannot allow a 35-year-old building that has never been completed to stand in its current condition. The county contends deadlines have already passed for when the tower should have come down, and that even construction done decades ago would have to pass more stringent building standards. TRC did a phase 1 analysis at New Indy in 2017, which shows foundation issues, chemicals leaking by those issues, U-drains that empty into the lagoon that isn't treating the toxins properly, that in turn goes into our water supply, the Catawba River. The county had to have issued permits to New Indy. Was there an on-site inspection done? I don't expect you to answer that. I can't wait to check out these stringent standards for New Indy. Does the county and the council follow the county laws or just when it's convenient for what fits a predispositioned agenda? Is it about residents' health and well-being or about land and money? I don't think we should be growing anything or rezoning anything or enticing anyone to move to an area that is affected by the New Indy paper mill. Okay, tax dollars aside, shouldn't be done. You're going against your own ordinances.
Thank you, ma'am. Bev Carroll.
May I ask, I think I'm speaking on an issue on the agenda. Is the procedure to do it now when that issue comes? I'm happy to speak at any time.
For public hearings, you aren't limited in your time. You would be limited to 2 minutes if you wanted to speak here. You'll be limited to 2 minutes. If you speak now, you can wait until the public hearing and not be limited. Yes, ma'am. John Taylor. Same. All right. Allison Harvey. Okay. Scott Childers.
Madam Chair, members of council, appreciate the time. I just want to do something that y'all often don't get credit for, and I want to thank y'all for the work y'all put in to some of the ordinance changes. I know the RUD stuff is on the agenda tonight, and I just thank each of you for taking your time with a lot of us in the public to hear what we have to say, to know what's important, and to get these things right. So greatly appreciated. Also, you would think I would know this with Mr. Winkler and I live in so close proximity, but I also want to thank you for the resolution that's on there tonight for engine braking, because that goes right in front of my house every night, and I hear it over and over and over and over. So I don't know how that got started, but I greatly appreciate that one. And again, really just want to thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Childers. Do we have a motion on consent agenda?
Move to approve consent agenda.
Second. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. We move now to our first public hearing. Council to hold a public hearing, amend and approve third reading of an ordinance to amend the code of the County of York, South Carolina, Chapter 90.02, rates, fees, and charges for public park facilities, services, or sponsorships In order to establish usage fees for the newly constructed Allison Creek Park, establish a year-round day use fee schedule and annual passes for Allison Creek Park and Ebenezer Park to increase recreational vehicle and tent camping rates, modify and increase certain shelter rental rates, to address sponsorships at Field Day Park, and to provide for other matters relating thereto. Do we have any comments from management or staff before we move to the public hearing? Okay. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone who wishes to speak against?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Do we have a new motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. We move now to our second public hearing. Council to hold a public hearing and consider approving second reading of an ordinance to abolish the special tax district known as the York County Recreation Tax District in York County, effective as of December 31st, 2022, as described more particularly herein, to specify the time and application of the final levy of taxes for the operation and maintenance of the York County Recreation Tax District, to provide for the winding down and cessation of operations of the York County Recreation Tax District as an administrative division of the county, to provide for a public hearing, and to provide for other matters related thereto. Do we have any comments from management or staff?
I know we have a few speakers here tonight, and happy to hear them and answer any questions council may have after they speak.
Okay. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against? If you please come forward and state your name, give your address, please.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Allison Harvey, and I'm at 194 South Grandview Road in Clover. I'm also the town administrator for the town of Clover. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the abolishment of the York County Recreation Tax District, which will end the financial assistance partnership that has been in place for 16 years for the joint benefit of citizens of the cities, towns, and the unincorporated areas of York County. You already know that the funds raised from this tax have been given to the cities of Rock Hill, Fort Mill, TKK, and York, and also to my town of Clover, and to the much smaller rural communities of Hickory Grove, McConnells, Sharon, and Smyrna. These funds have been used to improve the quality of life for all York County citizens. Some information and data has already been shared with you about the importance of these funds to our active and passive recreation programs. I want to tell you that the loss of $200,000 from this tax will be detrimental to the town of Clover's ability to provide programs and services to your citizens, those that live inside the town limits and outside the town limits. Unfortunately, this ordinance has moved so quickly before County Council that I nor my staff have had a chance to fully consider the impacts. First reading was May 2nd, tonight is second reading in this public hearing, and then third reading in early June. I think we all need more time to thoroughly and thoughtfully consider this matter before any final action or decision is made. This financial partnership, which has again been successfully in place for 16 years, deserves more study, deliberation, and conversation than 6 weeks between a first reading and a final reading will allow. I heard at last week's budget workshop that perhaps a majority of you are in favor of ending this tax. I hope that those in favor will reconsider tonight and instead make a decision to spend additional time in real discussions with the elected officials, staff, and citizens of the cities and towns in your districts. There is no need to rush to adopt this ordinance, but there are many, many advantages to taking the time to have real and meaningful discussion about this recreation tax and what it means to recreation in York County. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wish to speak against? Yeah.
I am Beverly Carroll. I live at 515 Guilford Road, Rock Hill, South Carolina. Again, thank you for hearing us last week, and I don't want to repeat anything. I do want to be clear, though, if there was any misconception, the coalition does not believe you need to start over. no question, everything needs tweaking. In this case, it could be the amount of meals, the distribution, new potential grantees. In fact, we already have several proposals for you to consider. This distribution is fair to the municipalities who, as we showed you last week, provide the vast majority of recreation in York County. And more importantly, we think it's incredibly fair to the citizens in the unincorporated areas. To put this in perspective, the current meal equates to about $6 per 100,000. Without these funds, there are going to be municipalities and their elected officials who will have to make tough decisions. And it's certainly going to impact smaller communities. And there is already some discussions of if they do not get the funding, whether they have to double or triple, which would certainly affect the people in unincorporated areas or even prohibit maybe their participation. I'm not trying to say this to make a threat to anyone. I just think these are the realities of what this coalition and the monies that has come from this have been able to provide to everybody in York County. And we don't think it has to happen. But we would ask you today to not vote on this, to engage, as Allison said, to engage in study and discussions on the issue, and be assured that there are participants in the coalition who want to talk with you. This is something, as I outlined for you in that history last week, that it took some years to put it together, but it's had a very successful impact on recreation in York County, we believe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wish to speak against?
Move close.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Do we have a new motion?
Move to defer this to August the 18th, August 15th, excuse me. Okay.
Second. I believe that the first motion was actually Mr. Winkler. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Now we move to discussion.
All right. As was said tonight, I believe that this is a huge detriment to parts of the county, mostly the parts that I represent and some of our municipalities. And I've fought this pretty much the whole time I've been on councils. We've been back and forth with funding for this thing and how it goes. There's been talk up here of killing this and then looking at putting in another tax at some point in the future of how to do this to make it more fair or something. But I know how things go. If we cut this and kill this or sunset this, future councils will be very hesitant to put in a new tax to start something that's already been working. I think we need to give time to let the coalition and council and the council members meet and see if there's a better way to do it before we kill it. If there's not, then we kill it. But I personally think there is a better way to do it, and I think we need to meet to do that. And that's why I make the motion to defer this reading until the August 15th meeting.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off Robert's comments real quick. I think that the pace of this has been fast. I think that in the last few days, I've had several members come to me in regards to ideas that they have that possibly this could get worked out. I think that it doesn't hurt to have additional discussion about that. And as Robert said, if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. But that would be my purpose.
Yeah, I would like to say I'm one of those that have been for putting a sunlight or sunset clause on this. But I'm not opposed to hearing anything else. It's not changing the budget this year. So if we can defer it and there are other options, perhaps there is a better solution. Not sure, but we've gotten until when, mid-September, till tax bills come out. Is that correct, Mr. Madden?
The tax bills do go out in September, but I'm not sure how that would correlate with the funding for next spring. That was, I think the current proposed ordinance had this ending December 31st.
Okay, so it doesn't change anything with the current tax bills, correct? There's no reason to rush through this at this moment.
It doesn't change anything with the current tax bills.
Okay. Thank you.
You know, we question our procedure of how we do things. We do have a procedure. And, you know, when you question the timeline of how this has progressed, everything progresses first reading, second reading, third reading. We've had discussions, even going back to last year, about doing something about this. We had discussions at our retreat in February about this. So when I hear people saying we're rushing, we're not rushing. I think the notice and the conversations has been had going back to last year, even when Field Day Park came along. How do we make this fair and equitable to those who are contributing pretty much a huge portion, more than 30–40% of what's going into this fund? And if you're gonna plant a garden, and you can tell I've been hanging out with some gardeners because I got a good friend coming, you don't just plant over top of what you had in the ground last year. You till it up and you start over fresh, and you get a new fresh crop. And by us putting a sunset date on this, it says we're gonna work on something new that's better, more equitable going forward. We all know the issues with this fund and how it's operating. We had people come speak, and I've gotten phone calls, and I know people are this is election season, so I know people want to kick the can down the road and get through their elections, but we got to be men and women and stand by what's right to do and not push things off because it's an election season. We know this is not operating in the manner in which it was intended. We know it's not fair to those who are contributing a huge portion. Let's be the men and women and do what's right now, put a sunset date on it, and we still have time to come up with a better working system for everybody. I've been on here for 12 years, and we had problems of kicking the can down the road every time we had a critical decision to make. Every time people get a lot of phone calls from some people with who are higher up on the status chain, and we want to back down from what we know is right. That's not why we took these positions, to bow down to the elite, whether you're from Rock Hill, whether you're from Fort Mill, whether you're from Clover. And if we don't do this and keep this on the same track that we put a rezoning on, same track that we put every other agenda item on, 3 readings, a public hearing, and we vote. If we just started this 6 weeks ago, I would say we were rushing. But this didn't just start 3 weeks ago. This started last year. It came up again in our retreat. It has come up in the rec planning conversation for the last 2 years. And I hate to say we have to be big brother or daddy when the rec coalition can't work out their own issues and differences. We will take steps and we'll do what we were charged to do and make it right. So I support putting a sunset date on this rec fund, start it over and make it better. Because we heard in the presentation last week that it has happened. The rec fund has started, it has stopped, it was revamped, and it kept going. It wasn't a huge break in the action, wasn't a huge break in not collecting the money and distributing it, and it probably won't be a huge break. And the threat of that municipalities will charge more or not allow county residents to participate. Well, that's not on us. That's on the municipality who makes those decisions not to let unincorporated individuals participate in their programs. That's not what we're up here to do. That's basically what the city and municipalities, if they make that decision, shame on them for keeping kids from participating, adults for participating, or anyone that lives in the area. So the threat is not idle. We think they would probably try to do that, but that's clearly their choice. In doubling and tripling fees, I got phone calls since this has come up that, fees are gonna triple. That's up to the city. If they wanna triple the fees for unincorporated citizens to participate, that's clearly on them. But I think the right thing to do is put a sunset date on it, have the current or future council members sit down with the rec coalition, sit down with town administrators, PRTs from different municipalities, and come up with what really works. Because this has been in question for a couple of years. And the only way it will get worked out if we put our foot down and say this is ending, and then people will really have to come to the table and really want to work it out. Right now, those who could have worked it out before now have just pushed those with the concern to the side because they had the bigger voice. But we want to make sure everybody has a voice at the table of how this fund works, how this money is distributed equitably. You know, no one's going to get the same amount because the greater population's on one side of the county. Certain cities, municipalities are bigger than others. Certain cities and municipalities do more rec than others. But we can come up with something that works better going forward. And I'm willing to say, if we put a sunset date on it, we will work it out and make it better going forward. So I won't be supporting the motion. I do believe we need a sunset date and start over, so I'm not supporting the motion.
So I'd like to thank the town of Clover, number one, for being here tonight and for speaking up. And I want you to realize that my intent, I'm speaking up on your behalf, and here's why. Because your numbers were the most accurate, and all of the other municipalities' numbers were way off, and I'm gonna give you some of those numbers. These are the numbers, and I don't know if we can show this. Do we have a thing we can show? Okay. So I'll just tell you, Mr. Audette, for Fort Mill and Tega Fort Mill reported a cost of $386.88 per child, when the actual number is $56.42. They inflated their numbers 586%. Tega $308.50 per child, when it's $55.09, of inflation rate of 460%. Rock Hill reports $243.56. It's $180.98, a 35% inflation. In York, $140, when in fact it's $85. It's 65%. The average, oh, by the way, Clover's numbers were a little off. You came in under 11%. So that means a lot to me, that you are very accurate and that you are looking at this, and that is very important. The average was that the numbers were 95% over what the actual numbers are. So thank you to our Kevin Madden and all his titles for getting these numbers and giving us the accurate numbers. And I think Mr. Winkler summed it up for us. This has been being discussed the whole time he's been on council. So this is not a new topic that has come up. So it's time for a sunset. And I am an advocate for the people. I don't want to take recreation from any child or any family. But you've talked about passive recreation tonight, and this is not for passive recreation. This is for non-passive recreation. And so that's how the ordinance is read. So passive recreation is not even a factor. So you can make people think you're doing walking trails and things like that, but that's not what this recreation funding was meant for. And the other side of this is that I am so disappointed in the Rec Coalition, because when the people of Lake Wylie passed the referendum to tax themselves for recreation, non-passive recreation, again, in the Lake Wylie district, they voted to tax themselves. And at that same time, in 2016, by 2017, we qualified to get part of the money, the distribution. We qualified. And I waited a couple years to bring it up. But in all of this, I've never seen a group that was less likely to do the right thing. Because when we came to you, I brought this up on behalf of the people that I represent in the Lake Wylie area. And what's concerning to me is that I sit up here and I represent county-wide, every single person in every one of your districts. I look out for those people. But the Rec Coalition says, oh no, we're not going to give Lake Wylie a dime. We're not going to give them anything. The first year we brought it up. Last year, they agreed to give us the overage, the biggest difference. So let me tell you about this rec funding. Let me try and give you a visual. When this began almost 16 years ago, those funds were for a certain number of people, and maybe it looked like this. But what's happened since then is that the population has gotten really, really heavy. I mean, there's a lot more people. So the number has gone up, but the number of people using the municipal recreation funding has gone down. So now we've got a big gap like this, and we need to fix that gap. And I'm willing to work as hard as anybody. I'm willing to work with that coalition. I'm willing to work with the towns and the cities to make this fair and to make this right for all the kids. But what got us to this point is the fact that that coalition was not willing to do that. So I'm very disappointed in that. I would like to see us vote tonight to put the sunset on this, and then let's use that time, that space that you want to reconsider at what we should be doing and how this should be and what would make this fair. Let's use the next few months to work with them and figure out what is the right thing to do going forward. Because times have changed. And it is time that the people of Lake Wiley, who, by the way, pay in about 35% of this. So half of the people that I represent, a lot more than half of the people, but half of my district puts in over $500,000 into this, and we don't get anything back. But that's okay with the Rec Coalition, and they want to keep their money. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, that's not all your money, and this needs to be worked out. It needs to be fair, and we don't need to delay this. And I mean, it's not about anybody running for office or anything. I mean, it's never about that. It's about doing the right thing for every citizen of York County, no matter where they live. That's all.
Well, one thing is certainly true. This is not a new issue. It didn't come to us yesterday. We have been talking about this since our retreat, and we spent a lot of time discussing it at our retreat. But one thing that's interesting, throughout those discussions, we haven't arrived at a viable alternative solution. And here we are, you know, on the precipice of voting to kill this without a solution in place and without a clear understanding of the small boys and girls who are out there playing sports who may be affected by this and, you know, who may come from a household where an increase in the cost would restrict them or cost them, it would be too much for them to be able to participate. And, you know, as someone who enjoyed sports as a child, not everybody has the opportunity to go play the $1,000 or multi-$1,000 travel ball, and the rec leagues is as big as it gets. And having the opportunity to participate in those programs and get the benefits of, you know, having a team and coaching and friends and physical activity and being outside when every other kid in the world is doing this is an opportunity that we can't just in good conscience shut down just because we're in a spitting match with municipalities or whatever the case may be. I look forward to figuring out a viable solution and look forward to figuring out how to make sure that recreation in sports especially are available for young women and children. I can tell you it's not the elite that are affected by $6 on their tax bill. It's the young women and children who come from households in the unincorporated areas where the triple the cost of, or double the cost, or put $10 or $20 on it, doesn't matter. But for a lot of people in times like right now, where small amounts of money add up and make a big difference on people's household budgets, and if you're gonna have to go to your child and say, sorry, you can't play soccer this year because, you know, I can barely afford cleats, but an extra $100 to play on top of gas to get back and forth, is this too much? Is this outside of the budget? And to tell those families that we're going to put it out of their reach because we just don't like it right now and we don't have a viable solution for them, I just can't do that in good conscience. And, you know, it takes a lot of confidence to say, yeah, we've been working on this for 6 months and haven't come up with a solution, but by golly, if we kill it right now, I know that we will next week. And I have the luxury of not having an election coming up. And, you know, this is the end of my term. And so this has nothing to do with politics. It has everything to do with the young children in this community who need to have those sports available to them. So I support a solution, but I don't support killing the current solution until we know what's up next. So I'm fine with deferring it for tonight.
But I think it's clear to see what the majority has already voted to. A couple of things I'll say, and then I do want to hear from management because I think process is important. Over the past 7 years, I think this council has done more for recreation than ever in the past. Anytime we've come up, we've recognized the importance to our community, and we have done what has been necessary to help the folks in our community, and we do it in a way that I think is one of the most tax beneficial ways. In fact, it's the way that many of the municipalities that are here tonight fund it, and that is through the H-tax funding and not through a dedicated millage amount. I want to be very clear to the extent that this is reported. What council is doing now, or what's before council in this ordinance, is not to cut any millage right now. Zero millage. All municipalities were to be kept whole And the next step was to figure out how do we fix that. So instead of deferring, my belief is that it would be better to vote on this and then to move forward and start over, because there is a problem with this ordinance. Anyone who pulls up this ordinance can see that what was originally intended, which I've talked with the council members who approved it, was to make sure that kids in the unincorporated area, because again, this only comes from taxpayers in the unincorporated area, but all the money goes to the municipalities. It was to make sure that they were taken care of and to make sure that they had a recreation league that they could participate in. What concerns me is that some of the language is now being used to say, well, it's to let people get into our parks, and we're going to have to increase potentially the cost for them to get into parks. Even with the amount that the council just approved for the county-operated parks, everybody is charged the same inside the county. Only people that live outside the county have to pay more. And so those types of communications and the idea that we're going to increase this millage that only goes to the unincorporated area, considering the 80% increase in water rates, is a problem, because people ought to be able to choose, especially since there have been changes with the rec leagues, choose where their money goes for their children to move forward. Now, having said that, I support recreation and I support good dialogue. One of the things that I think has troubled me about this particular process is that this wasn't really initiated by council. Management made a recommendation and they said that this is just not working. And yet I'm not sure what information has been communicated, and we received some good information from the coalition at the last council meeting, and we have not received, well, we got it today, right as we walked into the meeting, as to a response to that. And I guess I would like to make sure that folks who are here supporting this also understand from management's perspective why you supported this, because I think it's important that is said.
Sure, happy to provide some background on that. As you said, we've talked about this at least since our retreat earlier this year. And I think people that are here, John Taylor and Allison Harvey, know that I was on the Recreation Coalition when it started as town manager in Fort Mill. So I'm very familiar with how this ordinance was arrived at and how it has worked over the years. And even since the very beginning, the thought was if we could get some millage in place from the county, then the coalition would decide how to split that money up. And this worked as long as the coalition could reach some agreement on how that money should be divvied up. And I think for 16 years now, it's been divvied up for the most part with agreement. There's been a couple of different formulas, but there has been agreed upon. Recently, we introduced the Lake Wiley Tax District as a recreation provider, and that kind of changed things because before they were not a recreation provider, and as an unincorporated area, they paid into the tax. Now that they are a recreation provider, we needed to make some accommodation for Lake Wiley, the tax district. That has been done at, I guess, with not necessarily a consensus of the group. And I think where we are now is unable to reach some consensus on how that money should be divvied up. Our own ordinance says that the coalition needs to agree on how that money would be split, and if not, that the management would come up with some way to recommend to council how it would be split. We have not been able to reach consensus with the Recreation Coalition on divvying up that money. We have, I don't have any real expectation that management can come up with a formula that is going to satisfy the majority of council or certainly all the people on the coalition. So that is one of our reasons for determining that it may have run its course and not be as useful of a tax now as it once was. Add to that the fact that I think just the dynamics of recreation have changed in 16 years, much more proliferation of travel ball and independent leagues and things like that, to where you don't play Little League the way you always have. I mean, some people still do, but it's not the dominant thing that it was in the past. So at the time, I think when we established the coalition, the thought was that the cities would not charge outside city residents any more than they charge their inside city residents. We felt like if we had this sunset, the cities would be free to charge whatever they felt like was appropriate to charge the outside city residents. That way, not everybody's paying a tax that doesn't participate in recreation, only the users of that recreation service would pay for that tax or pay that fee. Again, those are all went into our consideration for why it was probably best to discontinue the tax and seek an alternate plan for if we were going to help the cities, what that plan might be. So that is our recommendation, that this would sunset. Does bring into the equation how you divvy up the final year of the funds. There's a proposal in the ordinance right now for how that's done. But I don't know if that would change if we are not going to sunset this legislation. And then finally, I'd like to ask Kevin to address some of the financial points that were brought up tonight. I know that we received their information. We tried to reconcile that based on their financial reports, have been unable to do that, but they're not suggesting that there are not, those expenses don't exist. They just may be in a place that we could not determine where they were from. So I'll let Kevin address that now.
I did take, and all of council was given this little handout over here, tying the spreadsheet that they put together, the PowerPoint slide, and the numbers are dramatically different. And I think when I hear the speakers from municipalities speak, I might have an idea of what they're doing. They continuously talk about passive recreation. We talk about cutting, and everybody talks about little Johnny playing sports. But if I were to guess, there have been a lot of one-time capital expenses and maybe debt payments on capital expenses thrown into these numbers, because they are dramatically different from the audited financial statements, dramatically different across the board. The participation numbers, we saw some pretty dramatic participation numbers as well, where it seems like nobody lives in municipalities, they're all from the county playing sports over there. Rock Hill did provide us a list of numbers. I gave it to the JS group to try to track the addresses. We are also subsidizing a lot of people outside the county. Lancaster County participate in sports at the same rates. We have a lot of municipalities, people that live in other municipalities playing in one other municipality's sports. Those are not unincorporated residents. Rock Hill is the only one that's been providing me any data. We did also find in that data, one of the guys in GIS working on that, his daughter, I believe it was, had done a sports camp at Rock Hill. She was in the list, he was in the list, his wife was in the list as well. So, getting good solid numbers to base decisions on is very important. And I think the intent of council has always been, since I've been here since 2016, was to make sure that the youth could play in these sports. We weren't trying to build trails or boat ramps or anything like that, but I think that is the request and the desire the municipality is trying to get to. But I wanted to make sure everybody understood why the numbers were so dramatically different from their financial statements versus what they presented. I think Ms. Cox did a great job of addressing the concerns around passive recreation. Again, from the number standpoint, when we do get around to talk about this again and talk about numbers, I'd like to have consistent numbers that we can address, auditable numbers that we can drill down into and make sure they're credible when we get to that point, looks like later this year.
Thank you, and I do think that if we're going to get anywhere, we're going to have to say the hard conversations, and we're going to have to talk about why these numbers don't work. I mean, looking through the ordinance, I don't think there's any way to salvage this ordinance. So I would say let's move forward with second reading and still continue to have the conversation and refer this to the committee over parks. I just don't think that there's any way to say this specific ordinance, it just has not been, it's not been done. There's too much baggage with it. There's too much changes with it. Even the part about annually filing reports, that has never happened, at least to my knowledge. And it's almost every single year that we have to have this discussion. And sometimes it's hard to have the real honest discussion, but hopefully it will happen in the committees, which it looks like the majority of this council wants to move second reading of this to the August 15th meeting. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No. Motion passes. I will say that this matter will be referred to the committee, which I think is chaired by Mr. Audette, for discussion, and we'll have the opportunity until August 15th to have as many meetings as are necessary to formulate a recommendation. Thank you. We move now to old business. Rezoning action, consider second reading, case number 22-05, tax map number 37600000010, zoning request to rezone from ID to AGC, 7.96 acres in District 2.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Is that to approve with the conditions that are listed?
Turn your mic on.
Is that to approve with the conditions? Okay.
All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Number 2, rezoning action. Consider second reading, case number 22-06, tax map number 46000000004, to rezone from RUD to AGC, 80.5 acres in District 2.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Rezoning action, consider second reading. Case number 22-07, tax map number 35700000029, a portion to rezone from RUD to LI, 1.69 acres in District 3.
Move to approve
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
with the conditions, all right.
So noted. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Rezoning action, consider second reading, case number 22-08, tax map number 65500000011, 65500000057, 65500000083, to rezone from AGC and RMX 10 to RMX 6, 10.82 acres in District 1.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Discussion here. Yeah. Joel, did you want to go first?
I do, although I would like, Mr. Kendra, hate to put you on the spot, but could you provide a point of clarification regarding the location of which district this is currently in?
Sure. Without the luxury of looking at a map, it would be in your district if you have been geographically removed for the upcoming election and the district's moving forward, but a sitting council member can't be displaced from conducting business by virtue of a redistricting plan. So for all intents and purposes, you remain as originally elected and with the boundaries as provided, so it would be in your district.
Thank you. So I just want to make sure that we're on the same page because there's a little bit of gray area there. So this is a project that has been in discussion for some time. I understand there's a little bit of opposition to it. I can tell you, when you sit up here for any length of time, one can start to become a little cavalier with kind of playing God and telling people what they can and can't do with their own property. I'm a conservative, which means I firmly believe in individual property rights and allowing people to enter into agreements with purchasers and sellers of that property. And if government is going to get in the way, we better have a darn good reason to do so. And in this one, I fail to see what the darn good reason to get in the way would be. We have housing coming into the area that is well above what would be the cost to serve. The value currently is about $331,000 for what would be the cost to serve, approximately. And these townhomes are well above that price point, and I believe they're going to be in the $450,000 range to start. So that's not really what, in my mind, is the price point of a townhome, but in Fort Mill, that's, I guess, what passes for affordable housing these days is, $450,000. But the point is it's well above the cost to serve. Now, this is a property that has been aggressively marketed for commercial reasons. It's been aggressively marketed for light industrial, and it's fairly clear the market has spoken as to what the highest and best use of this property is. I agree that it also would provide a fantastic buffer between some of the single-family residential area and Shutterfly on the other side, which is light industrial. You'd be hard pressed to sell $1 million acre lots right next to light industrial areas. And while we're on the subject, it's become tempting to say if you can't afford $1 million home, then you have no business being in Fort Mill. And I think that's a shame. I think it's a mistake to tell people that, we're just going to shut the door to this community unless you're a multimillionaire and can afford to come here and pay a huge impact fee and buy $1 million home. Otherwise, you don't get access to Fort Mill schools, which we're pretty blessed to have some of the best schools in the country. The other thing is this property, currently only produces, the 3 parcels together, about $11,000 in revenue for the county. So when you talk about, what's the cost or the burden, this is going to produce, when this development is complete, over $77,000 annually for the county, as well as over $63,000 for the school district, which they will certainly need to service their debt, as well as, almost $10,000, $8,800 or so for the Flint Hill Fire District. So this is a net benefit with very unclear, compelling interest to tell somebody what they can and can't do with their property. Obviously, the owners of the property are very interested in selling the property to a buyer who's willing and able to purchase it. And as a conservative member of this council, I find it very difficult to step in the way of that transaction unless we have a very good reason. And as I said, I just fail to see what that good reason would be.
Mr. Roddy?
I want to say it would be easy for us to sit up here and say, or hide behind, well, the comp plan says this is how I'm going to vote. Just to let everybody know, the comp plan was basically a shot in the dark, saying by 2035, this is what we see happening in the entire county. And I've said it probably 100 times in my 12-year tenure up here that we don't always get it right. Our staff and focus groups, they don't do market analysis. They don't, they're not into certain parameters of investments. They did their best on projecting or predicting what they saw this area growing into. But like we've heard from the realtor, as we heard from many others, it's just not happening what it's been projected for this to be on the commercial side. Being surrounded by obviously residential, being surrounded with a church next door and other residential in the nearby area. This doesn't fit to hold the line to say it has to be commercial. I think the market dictates a lot of what things are going to be. We can predict, we can project, we can lay a plan out, and it doesn't always go according to plan. And we hear people say, well, the 2035 plan says it should be this. Yeah, sometimes we get it right, but I think the more important thing is when we see something is not happening, that we have that liberty to change course and hope we get it right then. But I can, Maggie reached out to me, and I sat on a Zoom call for like an hour, and she showed me this immaculate plan for this area, showed me the surrounding things that was already there. And in my mind, I'm trying to visualize what would impact these neighbors more. An industrial site where 200 workers may be working 3 shifts a day, 3 shifts every 8 hours, 600 cars going in and out. That's going to be a bigger impact on this community, more so than, I think it's 48 townhomes. So we having to balance out some options, what's best for a community, what's best, and obviously looking at what the property brings in taxes, tax revenue, as Joel mentioned, 11,000 now, possibly 77,000 if these townhomes exist. That's something to put on the table. But in my mind, I was thinking, if this is going to be commercial, and if a company comes in and wants to run 3 shifts, 8-hour shifts, with 200 workers every single shift, which one is going to provide more detriment to that community? 48 townhomes or 3 shifts with possibly 200 workers coming on that site every 8 hours? I can imagine those neighbors come back saying, y'all didn't get this one right. The comp plan said industrial, but you got it wrong. The market analysis right now says residential. I think we have a chance to get it right. And I'm right now to be in support of the townhomes versus anything on the industrial side. So that's why, it got my attention, and I won't sit here and say the 2035 comp plan says this, so I have to vote that way. So apparently some people feel otherwise, but I'll support the townhomes going forward.
Ms. Love?
I can't think of a better reason than Fort Mill School District to deny this. And it's just for clarification, for those of you who are not looking at the paperwork and haven't seen the file, it's currently zoned ag, not industrial. So maybe there's an opportunity there for a couple people to come in and have a little bigger lot over there and still in Fort Mill. So I'm not going to be an advocate for approving this tonight.
So first of all, appreciate this time to speak. Yes, elected as a conservative to the county council, my past experience was 8 years on the Fort Mill School Board. Through those 8 years, we saw the impact of our roads and how it impacted our schools. When we look at a townhome project, even though it's only 48 townhomes, we're estimating probably 35 students right there. That's almost two teachers. You calculate that by the cost of a school and the impact on buses, that is an extended cost. When you look at the road that it's going to be on, it's one lane going both directions. We've got neighbors on the other side, which did speak tonight, and we've received emails that are against that. They understand the impact of the roads that these townhomes will generate. They understand also the impact to the schools. When we look at that location, again, there is a concern of mine that, we keep talking light industrial. Well, the chance of that being past light industrial is very minimal. The opportunity for something as Allison would state, as a homes with a larger lot, et cetera, or just office space, there's a lot more opportunity, I think, there in that perspective. But the concern of light industrial and trucks going in and out of there, I think that was a little alarming to hear that, because it was overlooking the bigger systemic issue we have here. Again, we have, as part of Act 388, the operating expenditures on schools is paid for by businesses, okay? Only the capital expenditures on your first home is paying for capital costs. So every time you put in additional impact, you're doubling down on our businesses, both on operating costs and also on capital expenditures. That location is too tight. The people across the road have spoken out against it. In fact, when I look at this, it was denied by the staff, and then it was also denied by the Planning Commission 7-1. I will not be supporting this tonight. I do not think it's a good location for it, and that would be my support of that support against it.
Any other comments from council? I'm going to support second reading simply because it's atypical that you have so many folks that are residents in the surrounding area that come out to support it. After talking with them individually, it's my understanding that there's never been a meeting with the folks that have come out in opposition, and I want to thank the folks that have come out both in favor and opposition to let your voices be heard. It will be important to me, and I don't know where the votes lie tonight, it will be important to me for third reading that I hear that there has been an actual community meeting that involved the folks that are here in opposition to see if there's any way to fix that. We typically defer largely, not 100%, but largely to the district representative that represents the area to make that decision, and he's the one who's held accountable to the people that he serves. This is a weird scenario because Joel represents him now, and Mr. Audette will at the beginning of the year. So I will support second reading, but I will not support third unless there has been a meeting and those that who have opposed have had an opportunity to speak with the developer. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Motion passes 5-2. Rezoning action, consider second reading 22-097, tax map number 721-0000-003 to rezone from UD to LI 2 acres in District 7.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Council to consider second reading of an ordinance to establish operating and capital budgets for the operation of the county government of York County for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2022, to provide for the levy of taxes for York County for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2022, to provide for the expenditure of tax revenues and other county funds, and to provide for other fiscal matters relating to county government. And before we get a motion, I would like to say to council that typically what we do is we make a motion to approve the budget, and then make amendments after that if you're so inclined.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'd like to offer what's probably going to be the first of a few amendments, but I make the motion to amend the budget to increase account 1211-42240-810 by 5%.
Which account is
instead of the 3% that management has recommended.
You want an increase from a 3% increase to a 5% increase?
From 3%, instead of the 3% that management has recommended. The reason is, this is the direct assistance that goes to our fire departments for their stations, and all the fire departments in my area, other than the city of York, are all strictly volunteer. They pay for their budgets with fish fries and barbecue sales and other things, and this little bit of money that we give them. The 3% increase that management is recommending, when you divide it out by the number of fire departments we have, basically is $128 a month. They can't fill up the gas cans for their generators and stuff with $128 a month right now. 5% is not much better, but it's $213 a month increase for them on their monthly stipend. Now, the way I propose to pay for this, because it is a grand total of $17,400, is the difference between what management recommended and what my amendment is. The way I propose to pay for it is, I said, taking it out of the account 1211-42240-652. That is the rural fire repairs to equipment account. And this item is increasing this year from $40,000 to $115,000. And it covers the cost of repair to small equipment, and to add the cost of testing for hoses and pumps, and the SCBA, which is the breathing apparatus and stuff, per OSHA. The reason I believe that we can afford the $17,400 cut in that account is, if you flip over to account 1211-42240, which is all rural fire board stuff, account 741 is rural fire machines and equipment. This line item is going from $89,000 this year's budget to $1.3 million. And that is, we're using the SCBA with recovery funds, so federal the ARPA funds, to buy all new air compressors for every fire department, fragmentation chambers, cylinders, purchases being made in conjunction with the replacement of all SCBA equipment. So by my way of thinking, if we're replacing all the equipment, we can probably afford to spend $17,000 less on maintenance of it and give the money to the individual fire departments. So that's my motion, is to move that increase from 3% to 5% and move those numbers around. And I have spoken with Morris, I hate to call him out, but he said that, he's the one that put the budget together, and he said that would be fine, that it would not hurt them in the maintenance or anything.
Do we have a second?
Second. That's the longest motion I ever heard.
That is a long motion. Sorry,
I was scared to interrupt you.
I got a little ahead of myself, so I meant to.
I hope mine doesn't have to be that long.
Long motion. Now can you tell us what it's about?
Yeah, right.
I apologize for getting ahead of myself.
That was one long one.
So we have a motion and a second on this amendment. Mr. Kendry, is it clear as to where those funding's coming from? Do you need a clarification on the motion itself?
I believe if the account numbers are accurately recited, they should be sufficient.
Okay.
We're good.
All right. So this is only as to the amendment. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the amendment say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the amendment is part of the main motion.
So I'm going to request an additional amendment to add the purchase of a vehicle for the coroner's office.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of this amendment say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion passes 5-2. Do we have any other amendments?
I don't have an amendment, but I have a question of Mr. Madden,
So we're to the main motion now. Questions on the main
I suppose.
budget? Okay.
Unless anyone else has more amendments.
Not me.
All right. Mr. Madden, I have a question. So I noticed some folks from Keystone are here. They had previously been in front of council requesting additional funding from our opioid litigation settlement funds. Do you have a comment or perspective on that, or
Yes.
do we need an amendment on the motion?
No amendment to the budget needs to be made for this at this point in time. We do not have the opioid funding revenue in the budget. As I mentioned at the budget workshop and special called budget workshop, when that revenue comes, if it does come, their request we feel is very reasonable. Manager's going to recommend that, and we will put it on a council agenda for you to approve at that time. This is going to be done very similar to the 223 we gave the CBB. As soon as the opioid money comes, we'll start giving them the 135. I think it's a reasonable request. They give a very good presentation, and management is going to recommend that funding when it comes.
Okay, but we don't need no motion. Discussion.
Any other discussion on, we are now at the main motion with the amendments. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. New business, council to provide first reading of an ordinance to amend chapter 154 Land Development Code, eliminating the open space requirement in the RUD and RUD1 zoning districts, extending the applicability of tree save sample surveys, limiting parcels created by recombination to a single zoning district, eliminating a development threshold for liability agreements, and clarifying provisions related to utility connections and open space lots, to amend chapter 155 zoning code, reducing certain design standards for manufactured homes in the RSF 30 district, allowing beekeeping as an accessory use to a single-family detached dwelling, reducing the applicability of accessory structure standards in the Lake Wiley overlay, modifying the screening standards for vehicle storage and outdoor storage uses, clarifying measurement of setbacks, and modifying the definition of data center to provide for a public hearing and to provide for other matters relating thereto.
Move to second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes. So these are things that the zoning committee has been addressing. And this is what I would determine to be our first batch of things coming. And so I would love for this to be approved tonight. There are a couple of things. We have a meeting tomorrow. We have a zoning committee meeting tomorrow afternoon. And there are a couple of small items in here that I want to just get some verification on. But otherwise, I think the committee thinks it's all good to go.
Mr. Rowdy.
I just want to say it's been real fun and interesting on the zoning and planning committee with Brandon and Allison. She really conducts some real good meetings, and I found it real entertaining and amusing how we're really getting into talking about trees and open space, and a lot of the stuff for me is jumping into something that I really hadn't been a part of till I got on this committee, and thanks to Allison and Brandon, we're really making some headway on going back and touching up some things that we approved as a body through the recode. I think we've had several meetings already on this committee, and we're probably going to have 10 or 15 more throughout the rest of the year. But we're definitely honing in on some of the things that was passed in the recode that we knew we was going to have to go back and tweak just a little bit. We're hearing from a lot of different people in that committee, so we're doing some pretty good things, and this is one of the first things that we tackled, and glad that we've gotten to this as quickly as we have, trying to make it right by the people that we heard from at our meeting. So yeah, This is definitely the right thing to do.
Mr. Winkler.
I'd just like to say thank you to Councilmember Love and her committee for addressing these things as quickly as they have, because we knew when we passed the recode that there were some things that we needed to look at, and thank you for being willing to look at one of the things that was important to me, and that was the readdress or looking at the open space requirements in RUD and the tree save, the surveys, that kind of thing that directly affects a lot of our developers and business owners. The costs to developing in some of these areas, the manufactured home instances, that we talked a good bit tonight about affordable housing, and the adjustments we made there, the things that gone through recode without us, at least without me, I won't speak for all 7 of us, but without me realizing they were in there, I believe would have had some drastic effects on our affordable housing situation. So I support this, and I thank the committee for the work they've done on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just want to second real quick. I thought you guys have done a fantastic job. I mean, the time frame in which you've gotten this back has been great. And you specifically addressed a lot of the issues that we've been hearing about on this, so thank you. Great work.
I also want to thank Councilwoman Love for leading these committees. The way that government should be run, if you haven't attended one of these meetings, I would highly suggest doing so. I think the first meeting, we turned our chairs around to face people in the audience, took questions, addressed the issue, advised council to make the changes that were needed, and have moved forward. So I'm extremely happy with how quickly we've gone through these and look forward to running through many, many more.
Any other comments? It's not usual that you get folks coming to the podium to say thank you for the ordinance that you're doing, especially those that are in the building industry. And so I want to echo everything that council has said. I'm appreciative of us moving forward, and I think this will help our community. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Now we move to discussion on the method to develop internal controls and accounting protocols for county boards not operated as an agency of the county, with the prospect of individual audits of those county boards, followed by resulting direction to management.
And I'm the one that asked for this to be on the agenda, so if it's all right, I guess I'll start out
That sounds good.
explaining why I asked for it.
Do we have a motion? Or are we just in discussion?
Just discussion.
Okay. I asked for this to be on discussion for us and to hopefully give direction to management to do this tonight if we agree that it is something that needs to be done. But, you know, as you heard tonight, I made a motion to try to get some more money to some of our fire departments and stuff. And I think, you know, I think every day for our firefighters and our first responders for what they do and you know, for, you know, the being the, some people might say somewhat crazy people that run into the burning buildings when everybody else is running out of them. But, so I support them, but over the years, we appoint people to these special tax districts that are our citizens, like we had a couple in here tonight that got sworn in, and thank you to those citizens. But most of the time, most of the people we appoint to those boards are everyday citizens that have jobs doing something else that many times are not like our finance director. You know, they're not used to counting pennies and accounting and what goes in which bucket and how you do the accounting and how those processes are done. And we've had some hiccups over the last 8 years of, you know, a special tax board or something being done and then us having to ratify it after the fact because of the way things were done or not done. And so I felt like I've asked management in the past to do kind of a class with these special boards, but in thinking about it, I thought the better thing, in my opinion, would be to have someone who's not management, someone from outside with no other interests to come in and audit this and look at the accounting protocols, the controls and that type thing, and then give us as the 7 council members and management feedback on, you know, best practices, you know, what they see that could be done, what's being done very well, what could be done better, and just give us some feedback so that we can try to make all of this more uniform and make sure that we're treating all of them the same and they're treating all their people the same. So I asked for the discussion, and I'll be quiet now since I've already got a 42-minute amendment on this.
Is there any other comments or discussion on the matter?
I appreciate Councilman Winkler for bringing this up, and it's obviously something that he's spent a great deal of thought on. And if there is a will from council to move forward with, you know, getting into this further, then I would definitely support it.
Just one more quick comment, because I forgot to mention, just to show, I'm not going to call any fire districts out because they all do the best they can, but we did have one tax district, special fire district, who did not even turn in a budget this year. And our fire services director had to do their budget for them. So that just shows we could use some help with some of this and some direction to make sure everything's being done the best way it could be.
I would support this.
Yeah, I would too. I think it's critical that we're giving them that additional support. At the end of the day, it's only going to benefit both the public and the fire department.
I think it's clear that the council supports our boards and supports any efforts to make sure that we give them the accounting needs that they need, and the direction will be to legal and to county management to follow through with that, to find best practices. Committee and other reports. Chairman Robert Winkler with Finance and Operations.
Thank you. The Finance and Operations Committee meeting met this afternoon at 5:30, and we addressed applications for service. First thing we looked at was Rock Hill, York County Convention and Visitors Bureau, and we made the recommendation for the appointment of Lori Helms to a first term for District 4. Rock Hill, York County Airport Commission, we made the recommendation for the appointment of Michelle Ayer for a first term and the vacant seat there. The Leslie Fire Tax District Board, we made the recommendation for the reappointment of Gary Morris for a second term and also for Bobby Willis for a second term. Then we looked at York County Council on Aging, and our recommendation was for the reappointment of Jane Wazaleski for a second term, and I probably said that wrong, I apologize. After that, we went through and approved some applications for council members' discretionary funding for their districts for some of the things they had applied for. And then we had a finance update, and we're told that all of that's coming in pretty much as budgeted. And thank goodness we're starting to close a few of the gaps in some open positions, especially in the sheriff's office, but in the county-wide as well. Starting to fill a few of those open positions, and that's a good thing because we've been overworking everybody, I think, so.
Thank you, Mr. Winkler. I will point out to council, before we get to the council member new knowledge and the comments, that we have citizen concerns to folks who have waited this whole meeting to move forward. Is there any new council comments? Okay. I'll now recognize Jonathan Nazier to address council regarding Victory Gardens International.
You speed right on past, man. We have one comment. I'll get to it.
I'm sorry.
Madam Chairwoman, members of council, I guess this video may wrap up most of what I've got to say a little bit this evening, but I appreciate the opportunity to come before council and present a little bit of information about Victory Gardens International.
At Victory Gardens International, our mission is to spearhead community redevelopment through urban farming, food production, food access, and job creation. We believe that collaboration leads to a bigger impact. So we act as a central knowledge exchange hub for a broader community food security sector, providing think tanks, open source tools and resources, training and grants to our network of organizations. Through this community of practice, we work to build capacity and impact with our partners and to make the case for increased funding across the community food sector. We know that to create lasting change, we must take action at the systemic level. So we create opportunities for low-wealth community members, our partner organizations, and concerned individuals to join us in advocating for policies that reduce poverty, food insecurity, and poor health. We've done this through our programs such as Victory Gardens at the Hands of Mercy, a small but productive 10-bed raised garden bed where we work with elementary-aged children, teaching healthy food habits and getting them involved by planning and understanding where their food comes from. Our Victory Gardens mobile produce bar provides fresh, affordable produce in low-wealth communities by bringing the store directly to residents in areas where they lack food access. Now we begin our next project, Victory Gardens at Emmett Scott, a 12,000 square foot community and innovation garden on this former Rawls and Wall School site. It will feature 30 raised beds for both our Silver Gardening Club and youth programs such as 4-H Club. Our innovation garden will be home to our Crop Box, a 320 square foot shipping container farm system featuring the latest technology in precision farming in hydroponics. The aeroponic farm will host 50 8-foot tall tower gardens. This innovative method results in faster growth, healthier plants, and bigger yield, all while using fewer resources. Students in our Youth Workforce Development Program will grow crops for local restaurants and retailers, explore agricultural careers, and learn financial literacy and life skills. This community and innovation garden will continue the legacy of Dr. Emmett J. Scott, the longtime trusted companion and secretary of Booker T. Washington, and the power broker behind the Tuskegee machine. Now, in order to continue our work, we need help from donors like you, ones that want to see a brighter future for all of Rock Hill. So please visit www.growwithvictory.org to make your tax-deductible donation to further our programs and grow community one person at a time. On behalf of our board, staff, volunteers, and members, we thank you in advance for your generous contribution.
All right, so that summed it all up. It gave me an opportunity not to speak as much this evening, but I do want to make sure I acknowledge, in addition to myself at Victory Gardens, but a colleague. I think it's important for nonprofits to work together. And Ms. Keisha Thompson is back here as well with Hope, and she focuses on food share. And you can see a lot of times that we kind of collaborate in some efforts to work together as well. So just wanted to present our organization with you on this evening. We are well on our way. Victory Gardens at Emmett Scott, again, is like our big project right now. Councilman Roddy had an opportunity to come out and meet some of the members of our Silver Gardening Club. We've got 30 raised beds, and the ladies and gentlemen are having a lot of fun with producing their own fruits and vegetables, and we're getting some great recipes and ideas about other things that we can do. But just wanted to present our organization to the county and know that we are there really trying to make a difference in the community. We believe that we teach a man to fish rather than just give him a fish, and that's what we're doing. Our Youth Workforce Development Program, which will be starting in June, will take 8 teenagers between the ages of 14 and 17, and they're going to get involved working in the community, volunteering at some food distribution sites and soup kitchens, and really understanding where food comes from in that process. We're also going to take them out to several local colleges so that they can explore careers centered around food, agriculture, and nutrition. So I'd like to thank council for their time this evening. Councilman Roddy, thank you for all of your support. We really appreciate it, and looking forward to continuing to serve the citizens of York County.
Thank you, sir. And what a powerful mission. And Mr. Roddy.
I just want to say something real quick. This is one of the organizations and small community projects that I've selected to put some discretionary funds, and I think it's going to go and help this organization get off the ground and running really, really quickly. Proud to support it.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for waiting, and we appreciate that.
Oh, not a problem. Thank you so much. We've learned a lot here. And I also want to make sure that I acknowledge, too, that we are on the site of Emmett Scott, which is a part of PRT, and it was through their help with helping us get that location. This was a former tennis court that was slated to be torn down, but we've been able to upcycle that too. So I do want to thank not only PRT, but Impact York County for their participation in helping us out as well. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Jennifer Ersick to address council regarding request for assistance for high-speed internet.
Hi there. Good evening. I think I may be the last on the agenda, so I'll try to go fast for you guys. Thank you first for your service to the county and for the opportunity to address the council tonight. I'm coming here tonight to share my story and concern over the lack of high-speed broadband internet access to selected residents of York County, particularly those who are served by Duke Energy. My name is Jennifer Ersick, as you mentioned. I'm going to soon become a resident of District 3 at 1975 Mission Road. I just wanted to share a little bit about myself. I'm a scientific director at a global pharmaceutical company, and I work completely remotely to provide training and education to our lung cancer field medical teams across the U.S. I absolutely love my job, and I would be really sad if I could no longer work remotely in that capacity. I'm also the type of person who likes to contribute positively to my community. I'm coming from Indian land, which is very overcrowded, and really excited to be out in rural, beautiful York County. While I was living in Lancaster County, I served on the Lancaster County Health and Wellness Commission. Of course, you need internet to do these things. On a more personal note, I'm a daughter-in-law to two existing Mission Road residents. So my mom and dad live at the north end of Mission Road at 1479, and my mother-in-law lives at the south end of Mission Road at 2273. I'm also a mom-to-be, and was really excited to be able to move to this part of the county with my husband, where our parents live, so that they can watch their kids grow up and that we could be like close to our aging parents. So as you mentioned, I'm here today to talk about internet. So I recently found out that there are no broadband internet options at my future residence, and the cell service with the Verizon tower is very poor, so I can't even like try to get a hotspot or anything that would work. I've spent tons of hours over the past few months trying to understand why there's no internet at my address, and I've been in contact with many folks at the local, state, government levels, ISPs, internet service providers, and power companies. So many people, in fact, that I had to put together a spreadsheet to keep them all straight as I've been talking with them, their titles, contact information. I've also researched the currently available internet opportunities on the street and nearby and have mapped all of this out. I'd be happy to share any of my documents with the council. I just wasn't sure if I could bring them ahead of time. So I've learned several things. Prior to initiating the build on our street, I had reached out to, I initially thought it was the county, but it was actually York Electric. And I was told that Mission Road was part of the phase 2 or 3 build, and that the internet would be, a fiber option would be available in a couple of years. So more recently, I found out that they are actually only providing that fiber option to York Electric customers. And we actually have Duke Power at my address. So my direct neighbor, Reggie, who's here with me tonight at 1941 Mission Road, actually does have York Electric, so we're at the split line. And so he will be serviced with the fiber option through Comporium that has been told is coming soon. However, that date keeps getting pushed, and it's now looking like maybe early 2023 even for that. So at both ends of Mission Road where my parents live, high-speed internet is actually already available. On the south end where my mother-in-law lives, she's serviced by Comporium. She also has Duke Power. And then at the north end, my mom and dad were supposed to be part of the York Electric Comporium build-out. However, Spectrum has now come in and recently, within the past month, has laid lines to the first 10 houses at the north end of the street. So as I mentioned, my parents also have York Electric. So that whole north end of the street is York Electric, and the whole south end is Duke Energy. So as I mentioned, my home and Reggie's home is the boundary line. Also, through my research, I've also learned that the South Carolina residents don't have choice in energy like many of the other states in the US, after I reached out to Duke Power to request a change in my power provider. So last week, I finally discovered and was connected to the South Carolina Broadband Office and utilized the address lookup tools provided by the state. We found that Comporium claims to be providing cable service already to the entire street. This is actually not accurate. As I described, the north end of the street up to Reggie would be the Comporium build with York Electric, and Comporium is providing some internet to several houses at the south end of the street, a cable option. So it's not accurate that they're providing internet to the entire street. And so Brittany at the state office is investigating this with Comporium currently. She shared that if they are claiming to provide service to the street, that would make our street ineligible for internet service providers to receive state funding for the Mission Road project. Most recently, I also learned that the county council has heard a request from York Electric for $5 million of the approximately $54 million that were provided to the county. I believe it's under ARPA. I'm not 100% sure on that. This is just what I've heard from folks at these companies. So you know, as I've been learning more about this topic that I really cared not to learn much about, I realized that this is not just a Jen Ursick concern. This is a concern of many residents in Western York County. There are dozens of citizens who are wondering if, when, how they'll get high-speed internet. Most are relying on satellite. As you guys know, with the pandemic, children need access to high speed for their schools, for their schoolwork, and folks like myself need to work. So we do have an online petition gathering signatures. Reggie, my neighbor, has also created a handwritten petition for our street specifically. And there's just a lot of misinformation going around about who's getting internet when. I would hate for others in my future community to be under the impression that they're going to be getting internet soon if they're not, because that's kind of what I feel like what happened to me. So thank you for listening to my very long monologue here. At this point, I would just like to ask you the following questions. I don't know if you can answer or not. But my questions are, like, what has been historically done at the county level to help the residents of Western York County gain access to reliable high-speed internet? Is there any update on the possibility of assisting York Electric with the $5 million funding? Also, what will the county do in the future moving forward to help our residents? And then lastly, you know, and specifically to me, like, to ensure that I can continue doing my job, you know, raising a new generation in Western New York County and providing care to my aging parents. I'm going to be moving in a couple months, and I have no idea what I'm going to do. You know, my parents do live on the street and they have internet, but I work globally, and so, you know, I work, you know, at crazy hours sometimes with folks in Singapore and other places. It's just not convenient for me to, or reasonable for me to go and traipse into my parents' house at 2 a.m. to have a 2 p.m. call in a different country. So thank you for hearing my concerns, and I'll just stop there.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you coming out. I do know that there have been ARPA funds that have tentatively been earmarked for the broadband, and my understanding is that there's also state money that is going to be available for that. The first that I heard that there are going to be these holes that exist was a couple of days ago, and so what I would do is I was asked management and staff to inquire of Comporium and York Electric about their plans, how many of these holes exist, and how they intend to factor that into the proposal that they put forth.
Thank you.
Could I ask Spectrum as well, because they are starting to come out in District 3 some, so we know everybody.
We did skip over Councilmember new non-agenda comments, but we can circle back if we need to. Mr. Roddy?
It was just a general comment. Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, can I just say one more thing? I apologize. You know, there's also a difference in the quality of the internet, and I want to make sure that whatever we do end up getting on the street is going to, like, support the needs of the street. So Comporium saying that they're going to put in like 125 megabits per second, you know, that's not going to support things like remote work and Zoom meetings, and, you know, like, we need a quality high-speed option.
Duly noted. Mr. Roddy?
I was just going to make a quick comment about Memorial Day coming up. Since we won't be meeting before the actual holiday, just keep in mind the men and women that serve this country and what Memorial Day is all about. And we do have two illustrious former servicemen on our staff, Kevin and Michael, who served this country, and many, many others. So just wanted to kind of give them a salute before we got out of here and before the holiday came up. So salute to these two gentlemen and any others who may be in attendance and watching, and get word that everybody knows what Memorial Day really means for this country.
Thank you, Mr. Roddy. Good comment. Any others? Mr. Winkler?
I'll just piggyback on that and remind people that the York Memorial Day Parade and service will be held right here in York at our Veterans Park, or York County Veterans Park, on that Sunday afternoon. You know, all the information's on the Facebook page and stuff. I believe it starts at 3:45, and it's always a good service, good speakers, and you can come out and see our one of our many beautiful county parks. So.
Excellent.
Mr. Audette?
Yeah, I do want to second Bum's comments. I do want to thank people for their service, and again, to make sure that we are honoring them that day. I do appreciate that, Bum, for bringing that up. Thank you.
Any others? Do we have a motion for executive session?
We do. If anyone was looking at the agenda and thought we were going to escape without executive session items, I'm very sorry to announce we actually have two motions for executive session. One is for the receipt of legal advice relating to a contractual matter regarding the engagement of John T. Lay of Gallivan, White, and Boyd for external legal services. The second reason would be for the receipt of additional legal advice regarding our pending litigation.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we will move into executive session. Just to let the folks know in the gallery, if 5 minutes, if you can scoot out so we can finish up, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. session. No action was taken. Do we have any motions?
We have one motion. That motion is to engage John Lay with Galvin White and Boyd for external legal services as we discussed in executive session.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.